What's up, lovers of whiskey and watchers of YouTube? I'm the Malt activist, and today I have not one but two Bruichladdich to share with you. And these are, of course, as you read from the title, the Feis Ile 2022 exclusive releases. Yes, I'm talking about number one, the NDAAL 01.1, and I am talking about the NDAAL 01.2. Let's do this. Before we begin, I just want to welcome our first-time viewers. Thank you for accidentally clicking on that thumbnail. I'm probably doing something right. Well, if you're here, let me interest you in some whiskey knowledge, some whiskey reviews, some whiskey rants, some whiskey lists, maybe even a vlog that's whiskey related. So if that sounds like music to your ears, then please hit that subscribe button and that bell icon, and let's give it to the algorithm. It is highly appreciated. To all those who are coming back and my returning viewers, you're the best, and I will never, ever be grateful enough for your patronage, for your love and your support. Alright, okay, so for those of you who don't know, I am a huge Isleophile, and I've been visiting the Islay Whiskey Festival, or the Feis Ile as it's known, since 2014, roughly. Every year I go there, and again, this year was no exception. This was the first time we were able to go after the dreaded COVID lockdown, so it was like almost like a return to basics. You know, everyone was in a great mood, and just being on the island was so much fun. Everybody was just like in the best of moods and drinking copious amounts of whiskey, as were we. But there's always something special about Bruichladdich Open Day, which unfortunately we missed. But I've attended it in the past, and it is an absolutely amazing time. Bruichladdich and Ardbeg are supposed to be two of the best festival days. Bruichladdich definitely, I think, a lot more fun with the music and the dancing. So you know, a bit gutted to have missed the Bruichladdich Open Day. However, we made it up by visiting the distillery and picking up two bottles of the festival release. I'm of course talking about the NDAAL 01.1 and the 01.2. Weird naming convention. I'm not sure why they would call it the 01.1 and the 01.2. Maybe they have something in the works that, you know, extends on this naming convention. It could have just been the NDAAL 1 and the 2. But hey, what do I know? I don't know the inner workings of why these whiskeys are named for this reason. So we have two whiskeys on hand with us, very, very similar in terms of the vintage and the makeup of the whiskeys, in terms of the barley, and I'll get to that in a second, but very, very different types of maturation. The NDAAL 01.1, primarily bourbon casks, and the NDAAL 01.2, primarily sherry and wine casks. Okay? Cool. So very different flavor profiles coming from the same distillery. However, the cool thing about this, wait, let's just get into it, right? Why, I won't tell you the cool thing before we really get into it. So, okay, here we go. Here's what I think about the NDAAL 01.1. Alright, so this is what I know about the NDAAL 01.1. As you can probably tell from the color, this is the one that is bourbon matured. Now, the cool thing about this whiskey is that this is, here I have my notes on me. Okay, so this is a mix of 2007 and 2008 vintage spirit from the Bruichladdich industry. In here are three different types of spirits. We have Bruichladdich, we have Octomore, and we have Port Charlotte. So very, very interesting in that regard. They're all 100% Islay barley, well done. The NDAAL 01.1, primarily bourbon barrels, and some casks, I believe, also were finished off in Sauternes casks. And what else do we know? We know it's 50% ABV, non-chill filtered, and no coloring added. So this is what we have for the NDAAL 01.1. I did a review of this at the distillery during my visit to the Islay Festival, and I even put it up in a vlog over there. But I think I did that in a bit of a rush. I wasn't ready to do the tasting, and it was on the back of a long day spent gallivanting around the island and drinking copious amounts of whiskey. So I don't know if that review really stands the test of time, but hey, but here we are now in a controlled environment, so I think that's what's important. Here we go. Let's pour ourselves a small dram. Yes, these sexy malt activist Copita glasses. Somebody was asking for them. Hopefully we will arrange for some very, very soon. So I love the labeling on this. Check this out. This is absolutely gorgeous label. Very, very contemporary. I like that. It's a departure from traditional whiskey labels, which some say can be boring. You know, if I saw this on the shelf amongst other whiskey bottles, I would definitely be attracted to this. You know what they say, dumb people are attracted to bright colors. I don't know, children and dumb people. So I guess I'm a bit of both. But again, well done on the label. I like it. It's very eye-catching, and hey, let's break the mold. There's nothing wrong with that. Speaking of breaking the mold, we have the NDAAL 01.1 in our glass right now. As you can tell from the color, yes, this is the one that's primarily matured in bourbon barrels. Very lovely nose on this. I remember nosing this and thinking, good job. Good job. Like I said, a mix of 3 different whiskeys from the Bruichladdich portfolio. There's a bit of Bruichladdich in here, there's Octomore in here, and there's Port Charlotte in here. We don't know the exact recipes, but all we know is they're probably 2007, 2008 vintage bottles. Vintage liquid, making this whiskey maybe around 13 years old, roughly. At best. Okay, for the nose, I made my notes. We have vanilla. It's quite salty. A bit of sponge cake, marshmallow. It's quite earthy as well. There's a hint of smoke, baked biscuits, maybe a warehouse mustiness to it at towards the end. So it's a decent nose. I don't know if it's an absolutely phenomenal nose, but it's quite nice. I like the fact that it, Adam Hannett has done the master distiller to include the 3 whiskeys from their portfolio into this one little blend, which I like. And it's not a blend, obviously, it's a single malt because it's all from Bruichladdich. But I like the fact that it has 3 different styles of whiskeys in one. So it's a nice little, homage to the history of Bruichladdich and what they've done. So well done. I like the thinking behind this whiskey for sure. Yeah, a little fresh grass in here as well. So overall, not a bad nose. What you'd expect from a primarily bourbon matured whiskey. All right, I guess there's nothing left for me to do but dance. Okay, so creamy mouthfeel, not bad. What do I have? I have it's quite there's the vanilla there, but now this is more ashy and more smoky. I get like a confectionery sugar. Very dry, extremely dry. I don't get the man. I thought this was going to be a bit fruity on the palate, but it's not. I thought it'd be a little sweet on the palate, but it's not. It's mainly in that sort of realm of smoke, ash, and oak, with maybe a hint of vanilla. Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure. I know I praised the palate during my review that I did at the Whiskey Festival, and I think there was a lot of factors for that. But you know, it's not as bad as I'm making it out to be, very honestly. Though I remember it being much better. So hey, I don't know if it was because I was on the island and it tasted so much better, and now that I'm here far away from Islay, that this is tasting a little different. So I really don't know the reason for that. It's probably that. But still, you know, having said that, I think this is a fairly decent dram. I think it could have been a little more balanced with the sweetness. I like the ashiness. I like the dry oak that's in there. However, I would have preferred the mouthfeel to be a little more syrupy, a little more on the fruitier side, a little bit more on the sweet confectionery side that I associate good bourbon barrels with. So, I think I'm going to give this whiskey. I'm going to give this whiskey a 6.5 C+. Yeah, that's what I'm going to give it. So, not the best, but definitely not the worst either. So, you know, it is what it is. What I'm really surprised about when I was doing research on this whiskey is that it's selling for 300 plus pounds on some sites. So, guys, this whiskey is definitely not worth 300 pounds. Definitely not. I think I bought it for about 100 pounds at the distillery. And even then I thought it was a bit too much for a non-age statement. But, you know, after knowing the vintage, 13, 14 years, sure, maybe, why not? You know, 100 pounds is reasonable, I guess, at some level, given where we are today in this world. But 300 pounds? No way, no way. Not for a whiskey that I think is a C+, you know. So yeah, there you go. Not magnificent, but not absolute crap either. So, you know, really down the middle of the road whiskey for me, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It is just a thing. Swiftly moving on to the Rockin' Now 01.2. This whiskey is primarily sherry and wine cask. Let me pour a little bit for myself. There you go. As you can see, oh man, focus. As you can see from the color, definitely slightly darker than the bourbon matured, of course. Okay, what do we know about this whiskey? This whiskey is slightly older. Some older vintages in here. We have a 2005, 2006, 2007 vintage in here. Again, mix of Bruichladdich, Octomore, and Port Charlotte. Apparently more Octomore and Port Charlotte than Bruichladdich as compared to the 1.1. This is a mix, again, made from 100% Islay barley. Fantastic. This is a mix of sherry and wine casks with Oloroso, PX, and Grenache thrown in the mix. So, good pedigree. Again, I salute the idea. I salute the concept of bringing all three brands from the portfolio into one bottle, and with two very distinct styles of maturation, so you can tell. I like the fact that this is 100% Islay barley. Well done, you know, keeping it in the family, as they say. Getting into this nose, I'm not immediately impressed. I find a slight off note for it's somewhere there. I can't put my finger on it. But, you know, I have my notes here. I've got fudge, cinnamon, nutmeg, treacle, dates, candied ginger, and sultanas. So the list of aromas, you know, sounds fantastic, but I find something slightly off on this nose that I can't put my finger on. It's not crisp. It's not, you know, it's not complex. It's quite... I feel like it's compromised in some way. Again, I can't put my finger on it, but you know, that's just the feeling I get. So not an ideal nose for me, which which is sad because I was quite curious about the mix of Grenache wine casks in there. So, you know, interesting cask selection. Becoming slightly better as it sits. I've had this before and I was like, I'm not sure. I'm going to give it a bit of time, but I don't think it's kind of evolved, so it is what it is. Okay, chin chin. Okay, so slightly better on the nose than slightly better on the palate than I'd anticipated. The nose really didn't wow me, but the palate I think does a decent job. You know, I've got hints of spices, that cinnamon and nutmeg is back. Red fruits like raspberries and cranberries. Very solid oak and a dark orange citrus at the end. And maybe a hint of milk chocolate also. So, you know, not a bad palate, all things considered. Again, I would have preferred the mouthfeel to be a little more robust. I'm not sure if we could have done better with a slightly higher percentage on the ABV. Maybe, you know, maybe at 100 proof or a 57 point something. That would have been interesting. Though I don't think it's the 50% that's causing the issue. I think just overall, I feel there's some level of compromise on these casks, again, which I can't put my finger on, which is stopping this whiskey from being absolutely phenomenal. Right now, it's, I think, just decent. It's a decent sipping whiskey, you know. I wish it was phenomenal, but it's not. And for that, I will give it a 6.5 C+. Yeah. So both whiskeys very similar in, you know, overall in terms of their quality. Could they have been better? I think they could have been definitely a lot better. I loved when Adam Hannett came out with the Port Charlotte 10 and what he did with it. I thought that was an exquisite dram and my whiskey of the year when it came out. It was absolutely phenomenal. So when I heard about, you know, what he'd done with the Rock'n'Dale and what the idea behind the Rock'n'Dale was, you know, 3 whiskeys from the portfolio, I was really, really excited. But somehow I feel that the whiskeys do not live up to this excitement. And then when I found out that they're, you know, upwards of 300 pounds on some sites, I was like, whoa. So this is definitely a no-go at that price. But if you're curious about it and want to know how it tastes, then fine. Don't pay more than £100 for it. And even then, I'd advise you to split it between like 4 or 5 friends, and, you know, just get a dram out of it or a couple of drams out of it. So that would be my advice. Overall, a bit underwhelmed by these 2 whiskeys. Even though I'm very happy with the labels, I think it's fresh, it's contemporary. They stand out on a shelf, and I think that's a good thing. However, it's the spirit inside that is really the proof of the pudding, and they don't come up with the goods, in my opinion. So an average whiskey selling for far more than it really should. What can you do? That's the state of the whiskey. That's the state of the whiskey industry these days. So it is what it is. So there you go. So thank you for joining me for this whiskey review. I'm the Malt Activist. Until next time.